Just do my thing. Oh, you keep hanging.
So I give you solutions, not just here's the problem, but I give you solutions.
I'm just doing my 6 in the morning, yeah, I'm on my dough. And I ain't gonna do
And that's why I wrote the book. It took me, it's about 37 to 40 years of research.
cause I'm sipping on some herbs. Now I'm flourishing, life's an excursion. If you get it,
When you isolate a vitamin from its whole food form, it becomes nothing more than an isolated chemical, and your body actually has to work harder to break it down to its molecular structure.
Feeling so good, so good. And I'm feeling so good.
Welcome, everyone, to Get Healthy the Wynters Way. I am Sharyn Wynters, and I'm so glad that you're here today. This show is based on my book, The Pure Cure, A Complete Guide to Freeing Your Life from Dangerous Toxins. They are 20 chapters, 20 areas of concern, and what you can do about it, and solutions. Today, my guest is David King, who is an author, lecturer, gardener, and poet. Maybe we'll get to hear some poetry. With over 50 years of gardening experience, he is an esteemed instructor for UCLA Extension, teaching many different facets of gardening in Southern California. David became a gardener at the age of 5, working alongside his parents, learning about the art and craft of growing food in the fertile soils of Kansas. He transplanted to California in the 1980s. He's adapted and continued to learn, and he fell in love with our Mediterranean climate. Well, who wouldn't? His lessons in gardening here will soon make their appearance in the forthcoming book, Growing Food in Southern California. He is the founding chair of the Seed Library of Los Angeles, and we're going to talk about that today. He believes that an abundance of varieties and genetic diversity is the key to food security, and he has worked to ensure Los Angeles has its own supply of seeds that will grow well in our climate and not be owned by corporations. The Seed Library membership is $10 for lifetime in recognition that everyone deserves the right to good, clean, and unadulterated food. He's the originator of this campaign to have Los Angeles declared a GMO-free zone, making it illegal to grow genetically engineered plants in the city limits. An entertaining and inspiring teacher, he has taught urban food production, plant propagation, including budding and grafting, gardening, sustainability, and container gardening. He has taught soils and composting for over 9 years, as well as classes in botany and seed saving and cooking. He also plays a guitar, a bass, a mandolin, and he's in a country blues band. One day he will enter his rhubarb pie in the county fair, and I hope that rhubarb pie is made with something other than our hybridized wheat. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have you tried that yet?
No, but we are looking at getting wheat flour from old varieties of wheat. The older varieties that weren't so hybridized as what we have today. And I think we're really excited about that.
What happened to our wheat?
Well, you know,
because the wheat in the Bible, I mean, wheat's been as old as in the Bible, the beautiful wheat, and they talk about it in the Bible, and it's no longer what it is.
No. Well, they did a lot of hybridizing and got the stalk shorter.
Right.
And somewhere along in there, there's a feeling that caused a lot of changes in the wheat that weren't necessarily good. And so a lot of people are going back to Sonora white wheat, which the Spaniards brought up from Spain when they came in through and established the mission systems, and also red fife, which is a very popular Canadian wheat. Looking back to these old varieties that are perhaps a little bit more difficult to grow, but perhaps don't have the same qualities of the modern wheat.
Right. So do you think that if somebody is gluten sensitive, and so many people are, that if they ate this type of wheat, that they would be okay?
There's a chance, and I'd like to see some experience, some research in that.
I would too. I'm just going to have to go to Italy and have some pasta.
Oh my God!
I sure do miss it.
It's a sacrifice you'll have to make for science.
I know, but somebody's got to do it, and
That's
so
right.
Might as well be me.
That's right. Might as well.
Yeah. So, David, let me ask you something. What do you mean by biodiversity?
Well, you know, what we have today is a lack of diversity. When you look back, there's a great article in National Geographic in July of 2011 And it talks about the changes from 1903 through 1983. In those 80 years, for example, the only one I can remember, at the top, there are 544 different varieties of commercially available cabbages in the United States in 1903. By the time you get down to 1983, it's something like 45 cabbages.
You would think there would be more, but
no, but there's less because, well, what happened though is the seed companies keep getting amalgamated, and they become, from a regional company, it becomes a semi-regional, larger region, and then into a national, and finally the seeds are being owned by international corporations. And they would have you think that if you can grow a cabbage in Miami, the same cabbage will grow in Bangkok, or the same cabbage will grow in Alberta, the same cabbage will grow in Topeka, Kansas, or the same cabbage will grow in Los Angeles. And you and I, as gardeners, know that that's not true.
Right, and it's not going to have the same nutrient value in each of those different places, too.
No. In fact, many of the hybrids that we have now have been hybridized not for food content, but for shipping ability or picking ability. The majority of seeds are sold to farmers. They're not sold to you and I, home gardeners. And so the ones that were good for home gardeners were just dropped. The varieties, because they weren't selling as well. There weren't as many seeds being sold of variety, let's say Copenhagen Market, which can be used, which is a favorite among home gardeners, but not necessarily among farmers.
Right.
So the ones that really sold well and sold a lot of seeds, that's what they dropped everything else. And that's a lack of biodiversity. So what we're trying to do is establish some of these old varieties that used to be commercially available and make them available for everybody here in Los Angeles.
It's awesome. And why is that important?
Well, the great lesson in a lack of biodiversity is probably the Irish potato famine, because they were really only growing 2 varieties of potatoes, and those 2 varieties of potatoes had pretty much the same genetic structure. When the blight hit Ireland, it affected both varieties, and it obliterated the food. You know that Ireland today still does not have the population it used to have before the potato famine. I mean, it was a disaster of unequal proportions. It was almost a genocide on the Irish people.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is today, with genetic modification, of course, most of our corn is genetically modified. And as I understand it, there are about 7 different varieties of corn, primary 7 different genomic models that are used for the corn we eat today.
That are GMO'd.
Mm-hmm. And that's most of the corn.
Right.
And they're all fairly similar genetically. So as a consequence, if a pathogen gets into our corn crop today, what do you think would happen on the shelves of the grocery store? I mean, it wouldn't affect you and I so much necessarily because we're not shopping for all the frozen foods or the sodas or the canned goods. But all those have corn in them. Right? And as a
and all those that have corn in them, they're GMO'd.
Right. Exactly. A good proportion, they say something like 85% of the manufactured goods in a grocery store are GMO'd.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to buy an apple right now, you can pretty well be assured that apple's not GMO'd, right? But you don't usually buy an apple. I mean, the modern American doesn't usually buy an apple. They go in, they buy apple pie filling, and that's got GMOs in it, right? Or if you buy an apple pie made in the bakery there, that's got GMOs in it. I mean, a good portion of what we purchase in America have GMOs. They're not labeled, so you really can't see them. Right. You have to read the label very carefully and go.
And that'll never. How can you buy an apple pie and label that?
Yeah, exactly.
If you buy it from a bakery.
If you buy it from a bakery, typically, I think if you buy it like at a supermarket chain, they will have a little sticker on there that says the ingredients.
Right.
But
if somebody goes to the bakery.
Yeah.
It's not, even if we get labeling, that's not going to be able to be labeled because our markets don't work that way.
Well, if you have
bakeries,
if you have a really good bakery, a baker that has a lot of pride, and they're going to be using cane sugar, and real lemons, that sort of thing, and so there's not going to be any GMO in those guys. But if you go to the budget bakery, right? Well, that'd be a great name, huh? Budget bakery. They're going to have their apple pies.
Rhubarb pie.
No, my rhubarb pie is done with the best.
Right.
Done with the best of things. No strawberries.
No strawberries.
Straight rhubarb.
Straight rhubarb.
Straight rhubarb. Yeah.
I used to love rhubarb pie, actually.
I love rhubarb,
Yeah.
and it's the first.
It's an
if you're back in the
acquired
Midwest,
taste.
yes, it is an acquired taste. If you're back in the Midwest, though, that's the first thing that comes green. Rhubarb plants will come out of the snow and produce the first thing you can eat fresh.
Really?
Yes. So it's quite a treat when you've been eating nothing but whatever, leftovers from last year.
I used to. Well, I grew up in Philadelphia, so we
Okay.
had rhubarb.
Yeah,
We had rhubarb.
yeah. That's the first thing that comes out. Always.
Yeah. Let me ask you, what is a seed library?
I'm glad you asked. Seed libraries, people confuse us with the term seed bank, and we're definitely not a seed bank. We're a seed library. So if you're a member, you paid your $10 lifetime dues.
So that's all it costs to become a member of a
That's
seed
all
library?
it costs.
And how does somebody become a member of the seed library?
You can go to our website, SLOLA, SLOLA.org.
SLOLA.org.
LA.org.
Okay.
And there's a way to sign up right there using a PayPal account for $10, or you can come to one of our meetings, which are listed there on that site.
Okay.
So you've paid that. You come to a meeting right now, pretty much, and you decide from our inventory what you want to check out. And you write it down on a card. A librarian pulls those items for you, and by the time the meeting's over, you can pick up your seeds and take them home. Let's say today,
So how is that different from a bank?
because you're going to have to return the seeds.
You have to.
Yes. In a seed bank, they usually freeze the seeds, and they're trying to store them for a very long time. So a seed bank has an incredible infrastructure. You've got to have something to keep it cold. You can't let them defrost. So that's going to be done by the United States government or by the Norwegian government, something like that. It's going to be some organization with lots of money. A seed library is a community effort done by people in the community to preserve the seeds for that community.
Right.
And so you come and check out some tomato seeds. Let's say you take home some Rutgers tomato seeds, which is what I grew up on with as a kid.
Right.
So you plant those out, and from those we're going to give you 6 seeds maybe. So from those 6 seeds, you grow out your plants, and you take 1 or 2 of the best tomatoes that you can find, and you save those and cut the seeds and get the seeds out of them and bring those worst seeds back to us. We gave you 6 seeds. If you use 2 tomatoes, you're going to come back with 60 seeds. Next year, I've got fresh seeds, and I've got 10 times the number of seeds that I gave you. So I can give it out to 10 more people.
That's fabulous.
That's how we grow our library, and that's just the beginning.
That's how we're going to protect
Yes.
our food.
Precisely.
Oh, I love this. I love this. More people need to know about this.
I totally agree.
That's why you're here.
That's why I'm here.
That's when I heard what you did
Yes.
and we met, I went, oh, I got to have you on my show.
Thank you. Well, and also something else that just isn't even...
And it's such a community thing.
It is. Totally community.
What's happening in the world today is forcing us to go back to community.
I totally agree.
And that's the good thing.
Yes.
It's forcing us to join forces, join arms, to go back to being what is right, what is true, what is real, what is authentic.
I totally agree.
Going back to our roots, so to
Yes,
speak.
our roots.
Our roots.
Our roots, yes.
Excuse the pun.
Yes. Well, and also, before we get too far afield, I want to say that those seeds, as they are growing out more and more in California, over generations, they change and become more adapted to our soils,
Right.
more adapted to our water,
Right.
more adapted to our climate. So I think that that's a really profound difference, a different model of agriculture than what we're living today. And one of the things I think we try to do in the seed library, or in saving our seeds and caring for seeds, being a steward of seeds, we also look to the stories of seeds, and we look to the cultures like the Native American cultures that really valued seeds. And we try to discover their stories about the seeds, and also look to the healing myths of seeds, because seeds were given from generation to generation to generation to generation ever since we started becoming an agricultural society. And the history in that, not only the history, the thread of it, that I, as an old man, give my seeds to my younger daughter or my younger son, and they give their seeds to their daughters and sons, and so forth and so on. That this lineage, this building of a line that connects people not only to each other, but to the earth and to the majesty of life.
Do you know the books Anastasia?
I've heard of them. I haven't had the chance to read them yet.
So they're called, do you know what they're called?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Anyway, in the first book, the gentleman from Russia meets Anastasia in the woods, and she starts to give him secrets of living. And one of the things that she said was that you take these seeds and before you plant them, you put them in your mouth for, I forget, 30 seconds. And all your DNA will be in those seeds, so that when you plant them and they grow up and they bloom and you start eating it, you're eating your DNA, which is a pretty incredible concept.
It is. Well, you know, a lot of people, there was a lot in agriculture, there was a lot more of the human senses. You know, my grandfather would go out to the field and taste the soil. And if it was a sweet soil, it was a sweet soil. If it was alkaline, it was sour. And you wanted the sweet soil. I mean, you get the idea of the sweet soil, and people today go, oh, it means it was nice. No, it means it tasted sweet.
Right.
He would also feel it in his hands, right? He would smell it. And these things are all important clues that we don't do anymore.
Well, farming has changed, as everything has changed.
Everything has changed.
And there are farmers that are sticking to wanting to be what that whole thing was about. Farming, having animals. You know, I grew up in Philadelphia, and I had relatives that lived in Jersey, and one of my relatives owned a farm, and we'd go, they had chickens running around, and we'd pick the chicken and, have it for dinner.
Yes.
and eat the eggs, and in Jersey tomatoes. Oh my God. And after years of going back to Philadelphia, you know, my mother would say, what do you want? I want Jersey corn and Jersey tomatoes.
Yeah.
And it never tasted the same because of what we've done to our soil and how much pesticides and chemicals. But when I was growing up, that wasn't on there.
No. Well,
It's changed so much.
It has changed, and it's also changed in the varieties you can get to grow. You know, when you get tomatoes, you don't today. You're not getting the same old tomatoes, right? Usually, in fact, you can take some of these modern hybrid tomatoes and grow them organically and do everything you want to them. And to me, that will still not taste like a tomato.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
So, yeah.
We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back more with David King and the Seed Library.
Thank you.
Mulberry love. For thousands of years, mulberries have played an integral role in traditional Chinese medicine. Now, Western science is being applied to explore these ancient practices. Call it the eternal dance of yin-yang or a harmonious meeting of cultures. This refreshing blend of mulberry juice and coconut water tastes delicious too. Mulberry love, a revolutionary superfruit drink.
She is all I need. So hopeless that I can't control it. But my mind won't be the death of me. I know she's what I need. Without my hair I breathe for just a moment in time. So my lines are slow, but I just gotta let her go. It's those pretty brown eyes, warming my soul, lifting me up if ever know where's my goal. When I'm all crazy, got my head spinning round, she just lifts me up when holding me down. Yeah, she's holding me down. Since the day we met, all I do is dream of her eyes. We're not in my size, and I try.
We're here back with Get Healthy, The Wynters Way. I am Sharyn Wynters. This is based on my book, The Pure Cure, a complete guide to freeing your life from dangerous toxins. Here's my book, and I have 20 different chapters, 20 areas of concern, and solutions to what you can do about it. And the chapter that we're talking about today is what's wrong with our food. And one of the solutions is what my guest is here today talking about as a seed library. And my question is, will that really have an effect on solving some of these problems? I mean, we're talking about seeds from one tomato. How can that really make a difference? How can that really change things, David?
Well, first of all, it doesn't change things unless a lot of people come on board. The more people that come on board, the more it changes things, of course. We have 750 members, so we do have...
How long has it been in effect?
You know, we started, honestly, in the first meeting was December of 2010.
Oh.
But we really mark our first time from January 2011.
And this is your baby?
This is my baby.
Oh.
Yeah. Actually, in 2009, a friend of mine said to me, "You should start a seed library." And I was like, "Really? What's that?" Great. And I looked into it, and it really seemed like an awful lot of work. And
well, it is work. It's
yeah,
an
and
awful
I'm
lot
kind
of
of
work.
allergic to work. So I thought, I don't really want to do that. But then when we got a new administration, I really thought things would change. I thought there would be fewer GMOs approved.
Well,
because
he did say
Yes.
that when he became president, one of the first things he would do was get GMO labeled.
Yeah.
And what did he do?
Nothing.
He appointed somebody that was
From Monsanto.
from Monsanto.
Yeah. So after
Disappointing.
a while, yes.
Disappointing.
By the time they got around to GMO sugar beets are wind pollinated, and the pollen is very light. And we've seen the problem we have with corn, with its pollen being spread around by wind. So it really kind of just threw me over the top. And I asked for a meeting of all the gardeners I knew in Los Angeles. And I asked them if they were interested in this to come and see me. We would do something in December of 2010. And to be honest with you, I really felt like that I would be there with 2 or 3 people. But instead, about 40 people showed up, which was really significant because it was a cold and wet day, and the meeting was outside. We didn't have an indoor space for it.
Well, you guys are farmers.
We were, yes. Well, yeah, that's what I say. We're
used to that.
gardeners. We can do this.
Yeah.
So, but after a while, it was down to about 15, 20. But those people really did form the core of this organization. And we went ahead and started meeting, and finally we got settled in on, now it's the 3rd Saturday of every month. We meet at the Learning Garden down at Venice High School. And what we try to do is we try to teach everybody something about growing to seed. It's a little bit different than straight gardening. And for instance, I just told you about tomatoes, and tomatoes don't cross with any other thing unless you make them cross for the most part. And so if you save a Rutgers tomato seed, your next crop will be Rutgers tomatoes.
Right.
So maybe a little change, but nothing big. And so, tomatoes and lettuce, peas, beans are all very easy to save.
Right.
And people can start out saving those just like that. So.
You said something before about the corn.
Yeah.
Gets airborne.
Yeah. The pollen.
The pollen gets
Yes.
airborne. So, with 85% of all the corn that is growing, isn't it possible for the organic corn to be?
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
So it's pretty hard to get.
In fact, when they first released GMO corn, the application said it would that corn pollen was viable up to 5 miles, and everybody just kind of went, okay, 5 miles, right? But nobody had ever done any research on it. We thought maybe they'd done research on it, but little did we know they hadn't even bothered. They just pulled 5 miles out of the air. Somebody finally did research on it and found that it's more like 25 miles.
Oh my God!
So if your organic farm is located within 25 miles of a
GMO,
you have a substantial chance of a cross.
And how about bees?
Well, bees don't play anything in corn. They do not pollinate corn. Interesting thing for corn, I love corn. Corn is one of my favorites. The tassels are the boy flowers, and the silks are the female flowers.
Uh-huh.
You ever eat an ear of corn where there was a missing kernel?
Yes.
That is one silk that did not get pollinated. Every kernel has its own silk.
Ah.
Isn't that amazing?
I love that.
I love that too. And so the pollen, typically from plant 1, does not pollinate plant 1. It pollinates plant 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6.
Interesting.
So they have to have a great deal of crossing going on. But the problem is then that you have corn, if you're trying to be organic and you're in a corn growing area, your corn can be crossed with the other corn. One of my favorite organizations is called Seed Savers Exchange, and they're located in Iowa. And guess what they grow in Iowa?
Corn.
Exactly.
Because it's as high as an elephant's eye.
That's right. And but to get their corn to be pure, they actually go out and hand pollinate every ear of corn on their farm.
Oh, I love that.
And that kind of dedication, I've seen the video of what they do. It's just absolutely amazing.
And is there any GMO fields around them?
There might be, there might not be, but if by hand pollinating it, they make sure that it doesn't matter.
That's interesting. So how do we get that corn? How do we know we can get that corn?
You can buy corn seed from Seed Savers Exchange. They sell some varieties of corn, and that is honestly, as far as I know, the only source that does that, and that they do that makes me trust them more than anything else.
Right.
So.
Do you think that some of these things will have a real effect on solving these problems in the long run?
Oh, yeah, because we have – all right, first of all, I think that by having someplace like Los Angeles be a safe haven for open-pollinated varieties like of corn or whatever else, because there's no GMOs being grown in here now. And we really want to get a handle on this and get it declared illegal to grow GMOs in the city of Los Angeles so that we have that
There's
buffer.
no GMOs being grown in Los Angeles?
Not commercially. This is the first year you can buy a GMO sweet corn for the home gardener.
Who would want to buy that?
I don't want to say it on the air.
No, say it on the air. Who would?
Well, I think somebody's with their head in the wrong place is what I would. That's what I would say, because most people
they don't understand what GMO is. I just did a show.
Yeah.
With Laurie on GMO. So
right.
You'll be able to go to my website, www.wintersway, WYNTERSWAY, and look at the show that I just did on GMO.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty powerful.
And people are finally waking up to it. I think, when I first started talking about GMOs, it was kind of like I was one of the first people to talk about organic gardening, right? And I was the kook, down the street who was gardening, organically, because after all, everybody knows better living through chemistry. And so I started out as the kook that was like stark raving mad against GMOs. It's just, in both cases, the alternative does not make sense to me. And furthermore, it's our society wants to fight nature, right? You know that fertilizer, the reason we had so much fertilizer in the 50s, and the reason fertilizers became very popular, was that fertilizers are made from the same process that you make bombs and guns, shells for guns. And, of course, nerve gas led us to pesticides. These were items of war, and what we did is we repurposed them to declare war on nature.
Oh, isn't Agent Orange?
Agent Orange is one of the herbicides that they want to start using now in our food.
Is that incredible? That's insanity.
Well, it's true, it is insanity, but in fact, even the start of this was insanity. To go out and say, I can declare war on nature, I can beat nature at nature's game. No, you can't.
No, you can't.
No, and you never will.
Right.
And the hubris of, I'm going to say, the Western mind, to think that they could triumph in a battle with nature, is just astounding. It's absolutely astounding. And what I've always urged is that we have a way to cooperate.
Right. It's ego-centered instead of heart-centered.
Exactly. And the truth of the matter is that you can't beat up on nature. You're going to have to find a way to work with nature. I think in any instance in my garden where I go, I think I need a pesticide, I think I've lost. at that moment I've lost. Not because I'm not understanding some process in my garden. It's not the garden's fault. It's my fault.
Right.
And as a consequence, in the garden that I have, we use 0 pesticides. You know, the organic pesticides are some of the worst pesticides in the world, right? Nicotiana, nicotine, right, is an organic pesticide. I don't use that, and I don't use oil, petroleum oil especially, but I don't use any of those. Because here's my thought. If I see aphids on my cabbage and I spray the aphids, I would bet you dollars that a ladybug found those aphids before I did and has laid her eggs in there, and the eggs are going to hatch out and eat the aphids. But when I spray, I kill the eggs of the ladybug as well. And as a consequence, I'm setting myself up to have to spray again.
Right.
Now, I admit, you asked me about rabbits before we went on the air.
I'm just having a field day with rabbits at my place.
And I admit I don't have a good handle on what to do with rabbits or what to do with gophers yet. But I will say this, that if I declare war on them, I'm probably going to lose the battle.
Right.
And so what I would rather do is find some way of cooperating with them that steered them that way and I go this way. So, but I don't have problems with rabbits. I don't have problems with gophers. And so I haven't really had to work with those very hard yet.
Right. Possums. I mean,
Well,
it's like, you know, I'm trying to have my organic little. I actually have biodynamic soil, which is great. I brought it in, and being an old Waldorfian, Rudolf Steiner, and he had a great. He had a great concept on biodynamic gardening, which was great, which is kind of you plant it at a certain time, and the water is a vortex, and it's all so beautiful.
Yes.
But I don't think anybody in my neighborhood is gardening. So it's like everybody's, all the animals are over.
You're it.
I'm it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We're going over there, and we're going to have ourselves
hey, there's
really
some
good
stuff
food.
going on here at Wynters Residence. Come on over.
And it's really good.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
Well, we have had very good luck. You know, we have possums. I don't mind possums because they tend to eat the slugs, and we do have damage every so often from crows. Crows are really smart critters, and we've had problems with them. But and of course we have a few rodents, and I was told by the administration, by the Unified School District Administration, that I had to put poisons out for the mice and the rats. But what they don't know is in a tree overlooking our garden we have a hawk, a Cooper's hawk. And that Cooper's hawk does a really good job for us in protecting the areas when we cooperate with him. He's great. He takes care of it for us.
We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with Get Healthy the Wynters Way.
Sharyn Wynters, The Pure Health Show, is brought to you by Mulberry Love. I love my Mulberry Love.
I don't need you, I do, but all of the things that you're putting me through. So I swear that I'm gone. You keep tripping off the things that I've done, and you'll be all over things, but you're thinking of me. Life shifting right by easy. Needed you to know that it's hard to let you go. Said it and I said it before. Needed you to be, but it's hard to let you see. Life shifting right by easy. Girl, it's not that I don't love you, it's just I love you enough to let you leave. You can't trust me, I don't know what I can do, so maybe one day you'll be thinking of me. It's worth waiting for.
We're back with Get Healthy the Wynters Way. I am Sharyn Wynters. The show is The Pure Cure, a complete guide to freeing your life from dangerous toxins. 20 different chapters, 20 areas of concern, and solutions to what you can do about it. My guest today is David King, and we're talking about seed libraries. There's a seed bank in Svalbard.
Yeah.
Isn't that much more significant contribution to food security, do you think?
Well, I think it certainly could be, and it certainly started out to be. But nowadays, I have serious doubts about Svalbard.
Really?
In recent times, the majority of the funding comes from the Bill Gates Foundation. The Bill Gates Foundation, of course, is quite enamored with Monsanto.
I know. What is that about?
Technology is going to solve the problems of the world, right?
He really doesn't? How can somebody so bright not get it?
I think, you're back to the hubris again. I think the hubris that a bunch of guys can sit around in some boardroom and come up with an idea, and then nature's going to go, oh yeah, you guys is doing it. We're on board with that, nature says. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think that is the way some of these people work. I mean, if you look at Monsanto, they created Roundup, and then they created crops that were Roundup resistant. Well, now anybody who studied any kind of biology knows that plants change to face the challenges that they're confronted with.
Absolutely.
You spray all those acres with the same chemical, some plants are going to survive, and they're going to survive because their genetic structure was slightly different, and then they'll take over.
Right.
So then you
got to make it more toxic.
Exactly.
And more toxic, and it becomes like a bomb.
Exactly. And it shocks me that when they put Roundup out and created the genetic modified plants to grow with Roundup, that they weren't already starting to work on Roundup 2014, right? Because they opted into Agent Orange right off the bat like that.
I know.
They didn't have another plan.
I mean, I don't know how many people. I don't know how many people realize that they're getting ready to put Agent Orange in our food. And do they think? I mean, the statistics now are 1 in 2 people are going to get some form of cancer. What do you think that's going to happen? Don't they think it's going to happen to themselves? Do they think they're going to be resistant to that?
I imagine that
or are they eating their own little seed bank of their own vegetables that they're growing on their own little campus someplace?
Somebody says that Monsanto has organic food in the cafeteria, but the truth of it is though that they've acted very cavalier about this whole thing, and have not recognized exactly how serious of an invasion this is. There is no reason why that our government should have allowed the patenting of seeds, because that's life. Seeds are self-replicating. So as a consequence, to patent life, right? For example, let's say I had a condition that Monsanto developed a GMO cure for, and I took the cure. Well, with GMOs, by taking that whatever it is, that genetic modification becomes every part of my cell. If I have children, they have the same modification.
You bet.
Right? So now, am I owned by Monsanto? Are my children owned by Monsanto? If my children breed, if my children have children and Monsanto doesn't approve of their partners, do they suddenly get thrown in jail or something? I mean, this is the kind of thing. You are patenting life. I have no idea why some of the really hardcore preachers haven't gotten a hold of this and screamed bloody murder. We are not God.
We all need to be screaming bloody murder, not letting this happen. Why are we being so polite about such a subject that is of grave concern for the entire world?
I like the choice of the word grave concern.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, it is for the world. And, in the United States, our process is that we say, well, these products are just like the ones that were before. If you have a genetically altered corn, it's the same as corn. Corn is corn is corn is corn. But then again, on the other hand, speaking out of the other side of their mouths, they can get a patent, and because it's so unique, right? Well, it doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
One way or the other. And
why aren't politicians screaming about this?
Because they're getting paid.
Right. And that's why we need to take corporations out of politics. We can no longer, which is one of the things that I so admire about Marianne Williamson, who's running on the Independent Party, not taking any contributions from corporations, so that she can can be free and speak about what is really going on.
Well, even as we've seen it in our universities, that Monsanto's funding is so important that they're willing to throw out academic honesty in favor of getting the bucks from Monsanto.
And why do you think Proposition 37 didn't get I mean, you would think in California it would have passed to get labeling.
I think well, first of all, we believe, I mean, I worked on that campaign.
Yeah.
And we believe that the lies were just, that study, there was some study that they came out with that it was going to increase the cost of food by $200.
Right.
That study was bought and paid for by Monsanto.
Right.
It was a fabricated study.
Right.
And, I think I expected them to have, to fight us on the merits of genetic modification. But instead, they just came out and they slandered everything. They lied. They distributed all this fear mongering, and didn't ever come out and say, "Well, our products are worthwhile because." There did no logic to it.
Right.
And so, we were kind of left. I was left a little bit thrown because I really thought we'd have an argument on the facts.
Yeah.
So we didn't have an argument on the facts. We had an argument about fear, and money.
And money.
Right,
and it was going to cost more, and it's good for. It was incredible, isn't it?
Well, the amount of money they spent was incredible too. So it was really it was difficult to watch that proposition falter. It was and the same thing happened in Washington, except in Washington they got caught laundering money, and so in Washington the Attorney General has filed suit against what's that, Independent Grocery Manufacturers Association or something like that.
Yeah.
And but at any rate, no. What we have to do is change our eating. Jeffrey Smith says if only 3% of Americans change what they buy at the market, it's going to be the death knell for GMOs, because it'll send a shot across the bow to the manufacturers. The manufacturers will start getting scared. When the manufacturers start getting scared, they're going to demand, we want non-GMO corn, we want non-GMO soy,
right.
And then the farmer's not going to plant it. Not going to plant the genetically modified soy or corn.
Well, we're pretty ahead of time in California. What are the other states like?
Well, we aren't that far ahead in time. There's states on the eastern seaboard that have passed GMO labeling. GMO labeling is likely to become law even in Massachusetts as we speak right now. So the fight, we had a fight, and Hawaii has declared some of them
right.
off limits.
Right.
America as a whole is behind because other countries have outlawed it or have labeling laws that are far stricter than we are. I think we'll catch up. I think the American people were caught napping. We were in front of the TV or whatever we were doing, and we just didn't pay attention. I think we have to wake up.
Eating some corn.
Corn chips.
Corn chips.
We're
That's
sitting there
it.
with our Doritos, our genetically
Watching
modified
sports
Doritos.
Right.
And
Can
we
you
were chowing
imagine
down.
all these people eating this? I mean, people realize that what is it, when a bug eats this corn, their stomach explodes.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think's happening to our stomachs?
Well, and the point being there is that when they created those genetic modifications using that formulation, their thought was, well, that isn't going to bother humans because humans don't metabolize this item the same way. What they didn't recognize, and that most of us know, is that there are more organisms in my body digesting my food for me than there are cells in my own body digesting that same food, and those are killed by the genetic modifications.
Right. I've got a great little pamphlet here that somebody can get called Non-GMO Shopping Guide, and you can just go to nongmoshoppingguide.com, and it lists all the different GMO foods, the non-GMO foods, and it's a great guide to have in your purse at all times or wallet.
Yeah, and it's, as I said earlier, a lot of the products in your stores are genetically modified.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely becoming more and more conscious. I talk about it in my book, The Pure Cure,
Yes.
Complete Guide to Freeing Your Life from Dangerous Toxins.
Yes.
And I go into what GMO is and hybridization, and what a shame what we've done to our food.
Right.
And what we need to do now is to start supporting our local farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think?
I do.
You know?
And I think we need more urban farmers.
Urban farmers meaning?
Farmers in the city. I think, we have an awful lot of property in the city that's just is derelict. And those derelict properties can be turned into farms, small farms, and so that the...
You're teaching at UCLA?
Yeah, I teach UCLA Extension.
And you teach farming?
And I teach, modern backyard food production is one of my classes. We do all sorts of modern of food production. We talk about chickens and eggs. We talk about bees, honeybees.
What's happening with the honeybees?
Well, that's another point where the city can come to the rescue again, because they aren't spraying the toxics like they do in our food in the city. And so as a consequence, the honeybee has a chance to make a stand in the city until we get the farmers and the farms to change the way they're doing their business. Once they change the way they're doing their business, we can bring the honeybees back to the countryside. But if we don't have honeybees, you're not going to have nuts, almonds, right? You're not going to have tangerines. You're not going to have lemons, apples,
and
pears.
they're selling pesticides to kill the honeybees.
Yes. So it's absolutely.
But there are companies that are working that they don't want to sell those pesticides anymore to kill the honeybees.
Yeah. And in fact, I think in Italy they've made the major player illegal in this country of Italy. If that has a tremendous effect, we see the bees really returning to Italy. That's going to be a significant point of contention, and we're going to be able to use that as a fulcrum to get that pesticide out of the United States.
Why specifically Italy?
Well, they passed the law to outlaw this pesticide. Right, and so that aren't
there other countries though that have passed that law too?
No, as far as I understand, Italy is the one that's declared it blanket illegal throughout the entire country.
I wonder why Italy came to the.
Well, who knows? I mean, certainly they're not the star player in some of these things. But then again, maybe the honeybee plays an important part in some of their.
In their
after
pasta?
all, most of the honeybees that we used to grow in the United States were Italian honeybees, and the Italian honeybee was one of the big players in the honey game for many years.
Do they have an accent? No.
Yeah, right. Well, you spot them by no, that's the French honeybee. Sorry,
by their beret,
by
right?
The beret is what I was going to say.
We're going to sting you now. No.
Yeah.
So. What really brought you to start your seed library?
The desire to make sure that our food supply was going to be protected.
Yeah.
And, you talk about food security. You can't talk about food security unless you talk about seed security. Because everything you eat, I don't care what you eat, I don't care if you're a meat eater or not, everything you eat starts with a seed. Because those meats that you eat, right, have to be fed on a plant to begin with. And so really plants are the essence of our survival on this planet.
Right.
And we have to have control of the seeds. The citizens have to have control of the seeds.
Right. People don't realize that the meats that they're eating, if they're eating meat, that the seeds and grains that these animals are being fed are GMO.
Mm-hmm.
So they're getting it indirectly and not even thinking about it.
Right. Well, it's true, and then and also that cattle are ruminants, and so they really are to eat grass. But instead, we're now feeding them corn.
Right, we're feeding them corn that's
right?
GMO.
And it used to be, I think, that they would lead an animal to slaughter at 2 years, 24 months. But because they're feeding them corn, they get sick before then, and so they have to now harvest them at 18 months. Just so they won't show signs of disease.
Right.
So our entire food system, look, this is what boils down to, I think. Once you talked about, you used the word commodify earlier, and I'm becoming convinced that as you commodify something, you destroy the sacredness of it. Right. And once you've destroyed the sacredness of it, it's okay to go for the cheapest price. And that's what we've done. And in doing that, we've destroyed the sacredness, sacrament of our food. And we've destroyed, and in turn, that's destroying us. That whether or not you believe in a power, a higher power, or a God, or whatever, at least let's arrive at an understanding that we believe life is valuable, is sacred.
Well, we've come to such a disrespect for everything.
It's true.
We're so disrespectful to everything, to life.
And so...
Let's take a short break and we'll be right back.
All right.
Mulberry love. For thousands of years, mulberries have played an integral role in traditional Chinese medicine. Now, Western science is being applied to explore these ancient practices. Call it the eternal dance of yin-yang or a harmonious meeting of cultures. This refreshing blend of mulberry juice and coconut water tastes delicious too. Mulberry Love, a revolutionary superfruit drink.
You've been so afraid, praying that it won't do too much. 'Cause I've been so confused. You've been feeling so used. You keep pushing me, but I'm too young to get married. Am I really wasting your time? Stop acting as if you could read my mind. You're saying I don't love you now, just 'cause I don't wanna settle down. Am I really changing your plans if I don't put a ring on that hand? You're saying I don't love you now, just 'cause I don't wanna settle down.
We're back with Get Healthy the Wynters Way. I am Sharyn Wynters. The show is called The Pure Cure, a complete guide to freeing your life from dangerous toxins. It's based on my book with the same title, and it's 20 different chapters, 20 areas of concern, and solutions to what you can do about it. What we're talking about today is my chapter about what's wrong with our food, and there's so much wrong with our food. And thank heavens for people like you that are doing things like the Seed Library to help keep good food alive and good products alive. Have you tried Mulberry Love yet? You got to open it up. Let's see.
Let's do it.
Mulberries and coconut water to your health.
Cheers. Thank you. And yours. That's nice.
Isn't that great?
It is.
Isn't that great?
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And no hidden agendas.
And no hidden agendas. We like that.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
Yeah.
So, what do you think the future of seed libraries holds for Los Angeles? And can other people be doing this in other cities? And how does one get involved?
Okay. Seed libraries are really quite the craze. They're taking the country by storm. I mean,
really?
Yeah. I think we started. We just had when I started, there was just a few seed libraries around, and now it's quintupled. Well,
exponentially.
Exponentially, yes, exponentially. But I see problems in that I don't think many of the libraries are working hard at getting seeds back. I think most of them are just getting the seeds out there, and the people are growing them, and they may not know how to take care of them to get them back.
Right.
To have them come as fresh seeds or as good seeds, or even seeds that represent what they planted to begin with.
Uh-huh.
And my fear is that if you become a member of my seed library and you come and check out a Hubbard squash from me, and you take it home and you grow it out, and it's not a Hubbard squash. It's a combination of squashes, and it doesn't taste good, and it doesn't look good, and it's worthless to you. I think if we have enough of those experiences, seed libraries will fall out of favor.
Right.
What we have to have is some way of having people really know how to grow the stuff out. So when you come and borrow seeds from me and you want an acorn squash, I give you an acorn squash, and it becomes an acorn squash. And when you bring it back, it's an acorn squash.
And it's an acorn squash.
That takes a little bit of extra work, but I think we can do that. Gardeners are, by creed, a more patient person. People say I have to wait. I say that's fine. I'm a gardener. I'm patient. And I'm patient about most things. I'm not patient about some things. Some things I'm really impatient about. But
well, we won't get into that.
No, just don't get into that. No, don't even talk about that. But that's a part of it. Patience and persistence, and people can learn how to do this. Just if you can learn how to grow things, you can learn how to save the seeds.
And it's such a great. I just love getting up every morning and just going out, to my backyard and walking bare feet.
Yes.
And just being in Mother Earth, being in the soil, and it's grounding me.
Yeah, literally.
Literally grounding me
that.
because with all the Wi-Fi's and the electrical stuff going on, and we're so phonetic.
Mm-hmm. We are.
And so it's important to be grounded. So it's important to grow your own things, and you don't need a lot of space.
No, you don't need a lot of space.
There's all these different things that are people are growing it up instead of this way, and
exactly.
All different things are happening with growing now.
Yes, and it's true. In some areas we have gotten a lot smarter. It's not the same. It's not the same garden that my grandfather would have planted. We try for more diversity planted in amongst the plants, so that we don't have rows and rows and rows of the same thing. But we have, a pepper here and beans here, and then an eggplant over here.
Right.
And there's an okra, and here an okra, and everywhere an okra, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we try, and I think my grandfather would look at my beds, my garden beds, and just have absolute fits.
Really?
Yeah. Because to him it would look like a jungle, a jumble of a jungle, a jungle of
right.
a jumble. And but I appreciate it because I think the different plants intertwining. First of all, we don't have these acres of gardens, so we have to put things together because we can't really rotate them.
Right.
So there's a lot of difference in our gardens than there were with the big gardens of times past. And also, we're not mechanizing the gardens. We're not going along with a tractor or a rototiller or something like that. We're trying very hard not to dig in the soil, right? To destroy the biosphere, the animals and the plants that are in the soil. We try to keep those alive and living. We want the bacteria. We want the fungus. We want those things in the soil because that's what's feeding the plants.
How can somebody learn all this from you?
Well, I actually have two things going on. One, there is a class the first Saturday of every month from 10 to noon, and that's $20. It's called What to Do and When to Do It.
Where is that?
And that's held at the Learning Garden, which is on the campus of Venice High School.
Okay.
And then soon there will be the book. The book.
But they can go to your website, slola.com? Org.
Org.
Org.org. slola.org.
And that tells you.
All that information will be up on your website.
There's information up there? Yes.
So, what are your parting words that you want to give our listening viewers?
Okay, I would say that the fight isn't over. That what we do, what we purchase with our dollar makes the difference. If we have the space, that we should plant some of our own food. We need more than ever, to know how to live in a community and be a part of a community. And we also need to know where our food really comes from. And the best way you can do that is to grow some of your own food. Learn how to grow it and take care of it. Eat some of the things that you've grown yourself. And that changes not only you, but it has a cascading effect through your life and the people around you. With that, we can change the world.
That's great. Thank you so much, David. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your work and what you're doing. And I'm going to come visit your seed library.
Please do.
And will you come and visit my rabbits?
I will come see your rabbits. I'll bring my Scottish Terrier over there.
Oh, your what?
My Scottish Terrier.
Oh, really?
He won't catch them, but he'll put them
well, that's all right. That's what we need.
Yes.
And thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please go to my website, www.wintersway.com. Send me any questions, any suggestions. any thoughts that you have, let me know that you're watching, and I'll see you next week at Get Healthy the Wynters Way. Namaste.
Sharyn Wynters, The Pure Health Show, is brought to you by Mulberry Love. I love my Mulberry Love.
I'm just doing my thing, doing my thing. Oh, you keep hanging. I'm just doing my thing. Oh, you keep hanging.
So I give you solutions, not just here's the problem, but I give you solutions.
I'm just doing my 6 in the morning, yeah, I'm on my dough.
And that's why I wrote the book. It took me, it's about 37 to 40 years of research.
Now flourishing, life's an excursion. If you get it,
When you isolate a vitamin from its whole food form, it becomes nothing more than an isolated chemical, and your body actually has to work harder to break it down to its molecular structure.
Feeling so good, so good. And I'm feeling so good.